Khan Academy, Add and Subtract Fractions, the subtopic Add and Subtract Mixed Numbers with Unlike Denominators and Regrouping. Okay, so again, I'm going to rewrite my problem, and I'm going to just write 1/2, and then I have plus 4 and 5/8. Okay, and we're going to go right back to what we've been doing. Don't change it up. We're going to make a common denominator. I can do 2 times 4 and 8 so that I can keep my 8. So 2 times 4 is 8. So 1 times 4 is 4. So then I have 4/8 plus 5/8. So 4/8 plus 5/8 would be 9/8. And then nothing plus 4 would be 4. Okay, but now that when they mention this regrouping up here, what they want us to look at here is that 9/8 is really more than 1, because 8/8 would be 1 whole. So they want us to look at this and say, hey, I can take 8/8 out of here and move it into my whole number. Okay, because 9/8 is really 1 whole with 1/8 left over. Tiny little 8 down there. Okay, because 8/8 would be 1, and then you've got the 9/8, which would be the 1/8 left over. So that 1 is going to combine with my whole number over here, which is 4. So we're going to have a 5 and 1/8 as my final answer. So 4 and 9/8 is the correct answer, but they want us now to regroup, and notice that when I've got that bigger number on top, that means I have more than 1. So 5 and 1/8 will be my answer for this one. Okay, so then let's try this one. 9 and 1/6. Take away 5 and 1/3. And again, I'm going to find that common denominator. I'm going to keep my 6. So 3 times 2 is 6. So 1 times 2 is 2. So now I have to do 1/6 take away 2/6. Now this is where a lot of kiddos say, oh, well, I can't do that. And so then they end up just doing 2 take away 1. Remember with subtraction, the order does matter. You cannot just simply do 2 take away 1 and put 1/6 down here. So what we have to look at now is if I only have 1/6, I can't give away 2/6. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take away 1 whole from here and make that 9 into an 8. And 1 whole would actually be 6/6. Okay, because that is 1 whole. So now if I look at this top fraction up here, I have a total of 7/6 because I have the 6/6, which is the whole that I borrowed, and I have the 1/6 that we started with. So 7/6 take away 2/6 would be 5/6. And then don't forget about your subtraction of the whole numbers. 8 take away 5 is 3. So our answer here is 3 and 5/6. Three and 5/6 plus 1/3. Okay, so I'm going to make my common denominator. In this case, I can make them both 6. So 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 2 is 2. So 5/6 plus 2/6, 5 plus 2 would be 7/6. 3 plus nothing would be 3. So 3 and 7/6 is a correct answer. But what we want to get to now is realizing, hey, you know what? 7/6 is really a whole 6/6 plus another 1/6, because 6/6 plus 1/6 would be 7/6. So it's actually a whole. So I'm going to take that whole out, and I'm going to move that whole into this number. So that's going to give me 4. So if I take my 6/6 away and move it into my 3, that's going to give me a 4, and that's going to leave 1/6 left over. So 4 and 1/6 is my answer. 7 and 2/9. Take away 3 and 5/6. And then before we get started, I want you to look for a minute and think, what common denominator would you use? Okay, so definitely some different options here. Okay, if you're great at your multiplication facts, you might notice that you can use 18 because 6 times 3 is 18 and 9 times 2 is 18. So 18 would be an excellent choice. However, sometimes kiddos are not great at their multiplication facts, or sometimes it's just easier to remember that you can multiply your common denominators. I'm sorry, you can multiply your two denominators together to get the common denominators. So in this case, I'm going to do that. So 9 times 6 is 54. So I'm going to make both of my denominators 54. And then 6 times 9 is 54. So 5 times 9 is 45. 9 times 6 is 54. 2 times 6 is 18. And then I want to do my subtraction. 18 take away 45. I cannot do. Now again, this is where a lot of 5th graders will just move that 45 to the top. We can't do that. So instead, we need to think, okay, I'm going to take 1 away from this 7, and that makes it a 6. And if I take 1 away, that's actually 54 54ths, because that is one whole. 54 54ths is a whole. So now on the top here, I have all of these 54ths because I have this one, the one that I borrowed and I changed it into 54ths, and I have what I already had up on top. So if I add 18 plus 54, I have 72 54ths up there on the top now. Okay, now I know those numbers are getting big, but that's okay, we can still do this. Okay, now I can do my subtraction. 72 take away 45. And if I do 72 take away 45, that's going to give me 27. My denominator stays the same at 54. 6 take away 3 is 3. So 3 and 27 54ths. Ooh, and they want us to simplify this. Okay, so we're going to have to look here and say, what can we simplify this? How can I make this smaller? Okay, and when I look at this, I say, well, I can divide both of these numbers by 9. And if I do 27 divided by 9, I get 3. And 54 divided by 9 is 6. So 3 and 3/6. But then I know that 3/6 is actually 1/2 because 3 divided by 3 is 1 and 6 divided by 3 is 2. So notice I got that big answer here and I had to do some work to simplify it down into my lowest fraction. So 3 and 1/2 is my final answer. All right, so I made a big fat mistake and I had to pause actually to check it out. So when I did 9 times 6 is 54, 2 times 6 is actually 12, not 18. So that would be 12 here, which means that I would have 12 plus 54, which means that I would have 66 over here. So 66 54ths. So 66 take away 45 is going to be 21 54ths. So 3 and 21/54 should be my answer. Thanks for sticking with me. Sorry about that, peeps. Now I need to simplify it. So 3 and 21/54. So here's 21/54. And I can do 54 divided by 3 is 18. Ooh, that 8 was rough. And 21 divided by 3 is 7. So 3 and 7/18. And if you are still with me after all of that, I deeply apologize. Really messed that one up, but I guess it just goes to show we all make mistakes sometimes, and hopefully you still were able to figure it out after all of that.